Well, I'm Cullen Haynes, and welcome to Live with Cullen Haynes, episode 45. In today's episode, we are diving deep into post-budget property buying in Melbourne, Victoria, close to where I'm from, Albury-Wodonga. Shout out to anyone in Victoria. My next guest has been in the buyer's agent and property field for the last 5 years, since 2021, is the director or one of the directors of Tommy Buyers Agents. Could you please welcome my dear friend, Tristan Larkin, who's going to be talking everything post-budget and buying property in the new order of things. Tristan, welcome to the show, my friend.
Cullen, it's a pleasure to meet you, mate. And I didn't know that you were from Albury-Wodonga, but I'm actually from there as well. So there you go.
There you go. Albury-Wodonga unite. Here we go. Mate, it's why you're so down to earth, mon ami. All the best people are from Albury.
You and me both.
Absolutely. And Wodonga, of course. And Wodonga. Well, can't despite the people from Victoria. But nonetheless, the episode sounds quite daunting. When we were talking offline, that it sounds like a cult or something, beyond the budget, buying property in the new order. What are you seeing? What's happening in your world? Because you specialize in owner-occupied buying in Melbourne CBD. Tell me more, mon ami.
Yeah, so what's really interesting is, we've got two teams here at Tommy Buyers Agents. We've got one that does an investor division that only purchases investment properties, and then myself, I run the owner-occupied division here in Melbourne for Tommy Buyers Agents. And It's really interesting for the budget side of things, because I've been able to sort of see it through two different lenses. We've seen how the investor clients have sort of reacted to it and what it's meant for them, what it's meant for their borrowing capacity, what it's meant for the entities that they're purchasing in, and how the strategy is changing. And then the owner-occupier side of things, it's also affected the market in a few different ways. And I mean, I was saying briefly, but the week of the budget was chaos. It was absolute chaos. It was every single day. We had phone calls with clients about, what does this mean? What's changing? A price is going to fall off a cliff. We had 4 deals, or it might have been 5 deals that fell over in 1 week, where either the vendor pulled their property off the market 4 days before an auction, which was just crazy. We had one of a property that was we'd negotiated a price on, and it was an off-market deal for a client. And then the vendor said, "Hey, sorry, we're not selling anymore. Or you can pay an extra $100,000 because we want to keep the negative gearing." And
unbelievable stuff. I've never heard anything like it.
Mate, it was neither have I. And like I was chatting with the client, I was like, "Mate, I wish that I could tell you anything different, and I wish that there was a strategy that we could use to talk some sense." But I think there was a lot of fear and a lot of panic there. We had another client. I was whilst I deal with the owner occupier side of things, like, it's quite common for us to purchase properties for people that are either interstate or overseas. And we had a client, we were going to be buying a beautiful Victorian terrace in Carlton North. Lovely. And it went to auction in a couple of weeks' time, and essentially, she was going to negatively gear the property for 4 or 5 years and then move into it to retire.
Yes.
Couldn't afford it. Her essentially borrowing capacity just collapsed. Without the negative gearing, as a high income earner that's overseas, it was going to be renting the property out and claiming negative gearing because it was going to be an extreme loss for her. Just couldn't afford it anymore. So those deals were just all gone. And this happened in like 1 week. So we're like, oh, what's going to happen now?
Yeah, like, we saw borrowing power decimated in similar stories. People that were going to auction had their pre-approval, and then all of a sudden, budget announced, Westpac, Suncorp, and Macquarie all came out and said, in an unprecedented move, I hate to use that word, but it was, basically took out their pre-approvals. Anyone was pre-approved and said, "Oh, those are not valid anymore. We're actually going to reassess everything. And by the way, your borrowing power is cut." Sometimes, the higher the income and the more properties you had, the more devastating the blow. So we had clients' borrowing power go from $1 million to $500,000 on the same property that they were going for. But, switching gears a little bit, you've come from an interesting background. You were originally in the music and events industry, negotiating with world-class artists. What was the moment you realized property was where you were headed, mon ami?
So, I actually sort of always wanted to get into the property industry from when I was fairly young. And it's interesting because I grew up in Berwick, and I went back there on the weekend. And one of the things that I did is I drove through some of the really nice streets in Berwick, and there's like these beautiful like 5, 10, 15 million dollar homes. And like there's this full estate of them. And I used to drive through there like as soon as I got my license when I was like 18, even when I was doing L's and grew up and skateboarded around those areas and things when I was younger. And I remember
Yes.
looking at those properties and thinking like, I'd love to just be able to go through them. I want to know how people can afford these. I want to know what it takes for me to be able to go and buy properties like this. Like this is like the dream family home. And so I always had a bit of a sort of inkling and obsession with real estate, and particularly the really beautiful owner occupier sort of dream homes. And so
Yes.
I contemplated going into real estate for a long while, even whilst in the music industry. But then there sort of
Yes.
came a point in time where I think the music industry, I felt like it was faltering a little bit as well. It wasn't like a
Yes.
growing, rapidly expanding industry. Like I remember I was doing PR at the time for some festivals, and Rolling
Yeah.
Stone Australia closed down when I was like 3 weeks into the business, and it was the biggest like publication in Australia at the point in time, and they closed down because they didn't have enough money coming in from ad spend anymore. And I was like, wow, that was really interesting that like the Australian division of this company like collapsed. Like it was the biggest one. Like it was like everyone wanted to be in that sort of publication. And I remember thinking like, oh, I'd rather be in a growing industry than one that feels like it's faltering. And I tell you what, the buyer's agency space has exploded since.
It has, hasn't it? Like, I don't know the numbers, but similar to broking, like there's 22,000 of us brokers out there. How many buyers agents are there now?
I don't know. I wish that there was better data for it, but I'd say we're sort of in the magnitude of thousands as opposed to hundreds,
Yes.
like three, four,
Yes.
5,000. I'm not sure, but well, what's interesting is that in the upper end markets, it's becoming way more popular. Like if I'm bidding at a $2 or $3 million property in Melbourne, there's a good chance that I might be up against another buyer's agent. And like with all the off markets and the databases, like especially with investment properties now, like I'd say the percent of properties purchased, if they're an interstate transaction or something, the chances of them being done by a buyer's agent is so large now. I'd love to know what the stats are.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Because for those that are tuning in or don't know what a buyer's agent is and have only dealt with real estate agents, and we all know real estate agents and lawyers and accountants probably don't mix. How does a buyer's agent differ? And
Yeah.
to put my hat that my legal clients would, why would I pay a buyer's agent who's tied to the price of the property to expect that they're going to get the best outcome? And I'm sure you can bust these myths, as it were, there,
Mm.
Tristan.
So yeah, I mean, a couple of things. So firstly, how we differ in terms of like what we actually do. So like a real estate agent there, yeah, a real estate agent is there in order to get not just the best price for the vendor, but also to get them the best terms. And I think that is a super underrated thing that they do, and something that buyers agents do on the opposing side of the spectrum. Whereas the buyer's agent is there not just to negotiate the best price possible, but also to put terms into the contracts to protect our clients. Now, protecting the clients in deals is so important when you're doing multi-million-dollar transactions. And
Yes.
even if it's like a first home and you're a first home buyer and it's a $650,000 villa unit or something, if you rely on like an incorrect building and pest clause, or you don't get one because that's what the agents say, or you could have
Yes.
been subject to finance and then you weren't subject to finance, or you don't have like good working order clauses in the contracts, or you don't understand how settlement terms can dictate an offer, or you just don't
Yes.
negotiate well, you can be out of pocket tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars on these properties. So I think it's not just trying to get the best price, but it's also to protect our clients. And one of the analogies that I've always found interesting, which is probably a bit relevant to you, is like you wouldn't want to go into court and then have the other party's lawyer represent you as well. And that's sort of what a law firm does when they're assisting buyers.
I love that, and I've heard some horror stories like, similar buyer's agent to your good self had a legal client, in point of fact, went with him, signed the fee, and then decided they met the agent at the grocery store and decided, I'm going to cut the buyer's agent out, bought the property, and ended up having like crazy issues with it. And it was the same analogy. He went, it was like I was appointed you as my lawyer, and then when you went out to the bathroom, I represented myself and then botched the court fiasco. So I
Yeah.
think it makes sense. And all the properties I've bought, have been through a buyer's agent. I can vouch for the veracity of what you do, and especially with time-sensitive individuals like
Mm,
my clients, lawyers, accountants, and even myself. I don't have 12 weekends, which is what your pre-approval is, right? When you think
mm.
about it, it's 3 months worth of weekends. I don't have that time to do that anymore because I've got two kids under 3 years old. So if you know the value of time, you know that fee that you pay, it makes sense, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, especially when you're in like a rising market. I mean, we're in a buyer's market right now, and I actually think
We
it's
are.
just as important because we can negotiate a lot harder. But even like then, it's like in a rising market, the amount of time that you're spending going through properties, and I think people also don't know how to spend their time. Like where,
Yeah.
if like again, like a lawyer is probably way quicker and has a way deeper, more knowledgeable understanding in analyzing a contract, for example, in a million times faster than what any average Joe potentially could as well. So like when you're dealing with a buyer's agent or a real estate agent that like really specializes in a market, their
Yes.
ability to understand the property and if it's a good spot or a bad spot and all of the nuances of the contract and everything else is going to be so much quicker as opposed to like anything else. So the amount of time that you save, not just from actually attending the inspections and the amount of time that it's taken me to like build all the relationships as well, as opposed to you going out and meeting all of the agents and getting on all of their databases and then trying to get access to their off-market properties and the phone calls and
Good
the
point.
text. Like there's
Good
so
point.
much to it. It's not just sort of showing up on a Saturday and then like making an offer.
No. Well, 56%, you shared some data, 56% of Tommy's purchases are secured off market. So
Mhm.
how do you build the kind of agent relationship that unlock that kind of thing? So off market for the uninitiated, from my
Yeah.
understanding, lawyers taught me to say that to the best of my knowledge, is when you get on realestate.com or Domain, the off market properties won't be on those apps. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, and look, I even think that there's off markets and there's off markets, and the way that I sort of phrase it is some real estate agents, for example, will sign up a listing and then they'll do 7 days of the property where they'll send it out to their database, and they might host an open the weekend before it goes online. Now,
Yeah.
quite often the reason that they do that, which is what we call that a pre-market property, but quite often the reason that they might do that is so that they can speak to everyone that comes in and ask for pricing feedback. And then that might just help them adjust their range either up or down when the property goes online on the following week. And they were never really going to sell it off market. They're just trying to get a little bit of like knowledge and understanding about what
Good
buyers
point.
think. So that's like
Yes.
an off market, but it's a pre market. And you might go there and there might be five other buyers. So for me, that's not a real off market, and that's not what we're going for. Some other properties, and as an example, I went through one this morning at 8:30 a.m. for some clients.
Yes.
And how this one came about is we had some clients, very, very niche brief, looking in a very, very specified area. And I've essentially been on the phones hammering all of the real estate agents in the area for the last like 5 or 6 weeks. It's a very specific brief. It's a 3-bed, 1-bath villa unit, and they're rare. They don't build them anymore. And like I looked up all of the ones that exist in these 2 suburbs that these clients want to buy in, and there's only 87 that were built. So I
Wow.
was like, we need to try to find one of 87. Those clients have
Well,
already
a
sold,
needle in a
and
haystack, as it were.
it's a needle in a haystack with time pressure. So
Oh
we
my
were like
gosh.
letterbox dropping all of these properties. I'd called all of the agents that had sold them in the previous years to those vendors to get in contact with them. And it just so happened that one of these vendors were out looking at a property to purchase for themselves. And they spoke to
Yes.
the agent and said, look, we'd love to buy this home, but we can't make an offer yet because we need to sell ours. And she said, well, what do you have? And they're like, oh, I've got a 3-bed, 1-bath villa unit. She's like, I have a buyer's agent with a client. Don't even sign up an authority with anyone else. We'll just do an off market and we'll bring one person through. And so we went through that home this morning. No one else knows about it. Literally, not anyone on their database. The rest of the agents in the office don't even know about it. She's just trying to get
Wow.
2 properties aligned at once. Brought us through, and I mean, we haven't bought it yet, but I've got a good feeling we're going to make an offer, and we're going to be pretty close. So
That's
that's a
a
true off
that's an
market to me.
that's an amazing story, and I want to piggyback of what you're saying because the average buyer takes 9 months to purchase.
Mhm.
You do it in just 4 weeks. So walk us through what actually happens in those 4 weeks that most buyers don't realize that's happening.
Yeah, well, mate, that's a great question because what I find interesting is that a lot of people make the mistake of not truly understanding what it is that they're searching for. And
Yes.
unfortunately, in markets like Melbourne and Sydney, when
Yes.
we're in auction dominated areas and
Yes.
we have a lot of underquoting that takes place, people can take
Underquoting? What's that?
well, it's unfortunately too common. Oh God, I've got another story. We're in the middle of a negotiation for another client at the moment. I can tell you all about underquoting. That's but what happens is that people look at properties that are online. They'll go and speak to someone that's an incredible mortgage broker like Cullen Haynes, and they'll get a pre-approval. And what they'll do is they'll be like, look, I've got 1.7. And then they'll
Yep.
start looking at properties that are quoted between, 1.6 and 1.8, for example.
Yes.
And they
Yes.
might go to someone and think, oh, well, I might be able to buy this one under the range, and and so on and so forth. And they don't
Yes.
understand how the dynamic of the market operates. And every single agency quotes different, and every agent within those agencies quotes different to one another.
Yes.
So it can
Yes.
be really confusing. And then all of a sudden they go to one or two auctions and they get blown out of the water. And then 8 weeks have gone by because they're more confused after 8 weeks about what they can afford and what they really want and what markets they should be focusing on than they were before they got the pre-approval. And that's a problem because all of a sudden months go by, right? And if the market's moving and maybe there's a really good opportunity out there that actually was in your price point, but you didn't look at it or you didn't consider it because you didn't have an understanding of what you really could afford. So the reason that we're able to actually transact quickly is because before we work with anyone, we'll have a sit down with them and we'll go through sold properties. And once we've figured out their brief from looking at sold properties, we know we can reverse engineer what it is that they're after. And once we know what the brief is based on sold properties that have transacted in the last 3 months, then we can go and find it. And we can quite often find opportunities that are better than those ones out there. But you need to have that like North Star of what you can afford. Here's multiple examples. And like now we know what to go and do. And then in that 4-week period, once we've armed with a very crystal clear brief, we hammer the agents. We hammer them.
Yes.
We'll essentially do agent email blasts, agent SMS blasts, and then we'll call all of them. And then if they don't respond, we show up at the open homes and say, hey, you might have missed my emails. And then that's how we get access to a lot of the properties and just fast track the whole process.
Absolutely. And I love that step that you do, delving deeper in that, is setting the expectation from sold properties of what exists. Because if you can't find it in the last 3 months, it's kind of like this property that you're looking for potentially doesn't exist. So you have to set the expectation. Correct. We do it all the time with our clients. It's like, God bless them. We get graduates coming in. They're on the entry-level salaries, which are pretty good for law, I must say. But we go, what do you want to buy? And they say a $3 million house in Vaucluse. And you're like, okay, your income, we've got to set the expectation. It's more like a $500 to $1 million house. So I'm glad you do that step where it's like what you're looking for at the moment doesn't exist. So you either have to temper back those expectations, or we're moving into a different suburb, or it's a townhouse, not a house. It's a unit, not a villa, things like that. I think that's important.
Exactly.
Now, you wrote about a buyer recently who overpaid at auction by about $600,000 simply by not knowing which side of the suburb they were on. How common is that kind of mistake you've personally watched play out?
So 600,000 is the biggest that I've seen. Unfortunately, though, mistakes in the vicinity of $200,000 to $300,000 are very common. Very common. Okay. Particularly when you're in the blue chip areas of Melbourne, like those price points, it's quite common to see mistakes of that magnitude when you're at like around the $2.5 to $3.5 million level.
Yes.
And unfortunately, people just don't understand suburbs and how impactful the budgets are. Like the price points can shift so drastically depending on pockets of the suburb. So like, for example, if you're buying in, let's call it Melbourne East, right? Melbourne East is a great
nice area.
And it's a large suburb, right? So on the east side of Melbourne East, you have Chadstone, fashion capital of the world. Brilliant for amenities. You do not want to live like within a stone's throw of Chadstone. It is chaos. It's extremely loud. There's a lot of industrial. There's a lot of commercial. You've got the Maccas there. You've got petrol stations. You've got a lot of main thoroughfares.
It sounds amazing.
It's like any time that there is like a holiday or shopping, like all of the streets are filled with cars and people walk in because it. And so like that side is the less desirable side of Melbourne East, for example. and
Okay.
you know, prices there, you might be buying a house for 1.5. If you go to the west side of Melbourne East, there is a little estate called the Gascoyne Estate. Now, the Gascoyne Estate in Melbourne East is one of Melbourne's most prestigious blue chip heritage suburbs, heritage estates, sorry. And all of the properties there were built sort of in the 1800s. You've got incredible architecture from Federation style homes, Queen Anne style homes, different sort of California bungalows. You've got Art Deco properties. You've got the sycamore trees with the, you know, the old English plains. Incredible architecture. It's fully under heritage protection, and like the average property in there would be like 4.5 to 5 million. So if you look at Melbourne East and you take a really stupid metric like the median sale price, for example, and then you apply that to a property that you're looking at that might be, you know, it doesn't have to be right on Chadstone, but if you like look at something that's on one side of, you know, Wattle Tree Road or Burke Road, and then you buy something that's a similar property on the other side for a similar price, you might have only paid like 400,000 or 500,000 for doing that.
Great point.
You don't understand the suburbs.
Great point. And you know, like it's similar to if you understand Sydney, where I live. We're in French's Forest, so it's very similar. French's Forest has 5 different areas like Belrose, Forestville, Davidson, Glenrose, and I'm forgetting one, so sorry about that. But similar sort of thing. And if you don't know where you're buying, it's very important. Now, my clients, lawyers and accountants, they are some of the highest income buyers in Australia. What do those buyers, because you've dealt with many, typically get wrong when they try and navigate a property in suburbs like you're talking about without help?
Yeah, we buy for a lot of lawyers, interestingly. And I'd nearly class lawyers sometimes in a similar bucket to like engineers and accountants as well. And I think nearly one of the only problems that they experience is that they're too smart. Now, I mean that with all respect, but how that gets them stuck is because you can sometimes be over analytical. Now, if you're too analytical on properties specifically, and you don't come from the property space, it's really, really hard to figure out all the data. Because if I give you a suburb, I could probably tell you 45 different metrics on it. And then when I look at that, like we have a 48-point checklist when we go through properties. But like I know what the weighting is. Well, there's so many things you can look at and check. Like, is it close to power lines? What's the zoning? What's the planning overlays?
What's the size? Everything like that.
Yeah. Is it close to social housing? What's your social economic score and advantage and disadvantage in the SA1 zone? There's so many little things. Orientation of the block, distance to public transport, distance to hospitals. All of these things make up what we call like an owner-occupier appeal. And the problem is that I've found with some lawyers is that they might find a metric that is important and we'll call it square meter rates or something. And then they're analyzing things on like this really niche square meter rate level. And they're like, well, this one sold for that, so I'd only pay this for that. But it's like, well, that one was south facing and the one you're looking at is north facing. It's much more desirable than a south facing block, but how much more desirable? And it's really hard to know those figures unless you're sort of in the weeds all the time. Like it's understanding like policies from a mortgage broker. Like I could be like, oh, this bank sounds like it's good, but you might be like, well, it's a great bank, but it's completely wrong for you because you've got this specific thing and you're on this ABN and you've been in business this many years and this policy over here is actually better for you. And it's like, if I don't know any of that because I'm not in that game. And I think a lot of lawyers that are really clever, like are analyzing the contracts or they're analyzing something, but it unfortunately means that they miss out on good opportunities, either because they're too slow or because they overanalyze it and then sometimes end up making a mistake based on like the wrong or incorrect metrics.
Well said. Well said. And, you know, like we're getting towards the end of the stream, but I want to delve into some of these things. Buyers agents were once seen as a luxury for suburbs like Brighton and Bellevue Hill. Now 40% of buyers are using one. What finally tipped buyers agents to the mainstream, would you think?
Oh God, I've been thinking about this so much because it's such a growing industry. And I really think at the moment, particularly in the investment space, to be honest, we're coming to this sort of pinnacle where it's the represented versus the unrepresented buyers. Now, like I was chatting with our team just recently, a few weeks ago, and they were representing some investor clients to purchase properties. And the agents now just have a database of buyers agents, and they're going into some listings and saying, hey, we're not going to put this property online or even tell anyone about it. All we're going to do is put it into a group chat with all of our buyers agents, and I can guarantee you we'll sell it. And it was a really, really good property. and they priced it well, and within 24 hours it had an offer, and then they just
Yeah.
updated it in the same group chat saying offers closed in 6 hours. Anyone else want to compete? This is where the offer is. You have to beat it. And there was like 3 or 4 offers that came in from buyer's agents on this one property. Not a single person even got to see it if you weren't represented by a buyer's agent and had the relationship with this agent. And I was just like, oh my God, like if you're investing, you are going to miss out on so many opportunities. And it's the same thing. Like if you're trying to buy a property in a blue chip suburb, you're simply not going to get access to the full market if you're trying to do it alone. So I think people are becoming more clued onto this as well, where they're like now, because it's been happening for a few years, maybe you've got a family member or a friend or a colleague or someone that's purchased property through a buyer's agent, or especially if it's off market. And then it's like, oh, I want to get access to all of that stuff as well. And then that's how like we get introduced, and it's just like growing through word of mouth now.
No, I love that. And I want to, maybe you switch gears one more time. What's a surprising skill from your music industry days that's really made you a better negotiator at auction, would you say?
Yeah, you know what's interesting? One of the first things that I learned when negotiating on artist deals, like particularly when you're booking acts. So I used to do a bit of booking for artists when they came to Melbourne and trying to get them into the scene. And one of the things that I learned really early on is that you should never give a price first. And so when I'm negotiating on properties now, I always try to see how low an agent will start when it comes to negotiating, because
whoever's going to anchor first. That's exactly right.
It's the anchor. I love Chris Voss, and I've read all of his books, and I've done his masterclass. Yeah, never split the difference. It's exactly Tristan,
right. I just can't do that.
Yeah. How do you expect me to make that offer to the clients? And I love those open-ended questions like that. And I did it today actually, like for this property. Like I was like starting the negotiations early. And it did remind me, this was like one of the first things I learned when booking artists. It was like, see where they start first, because you could be miles apart. Like with artists specifically, some might be, happy to do it for $1,500, and others might be $30,000, and some might be $100,000. And so it could just be such like a vast difference that, you just be like, well, what's your usual fee? We'd say something like that, or like, and then you just sort of see what comes and what happens. And that makes a massive difference when it comes to property as well. If they start lower than you were like planning to start, it's a great win.
No, absolutely. I remember watching Les Gold. He's if you ever watched that Detroit show Hardcore Porn, he's the pawnbroker. His first question when anyone comes in and tries to sell him something, they'll say a price and then he'll laugh and go, "How much would you really take?" So it's kind of like you double down on, and then they bet against themselves. So Chris Voss, never split the difference. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. We've got a thing called Vossing in the office,
nice.
which, so whenever you get on the phone, a simple thing is, when you call someone up and you ask them and you're getting them at a great time, you are starting at the wrong foot. You need to say,
is it a bad time?
Is now a bad time? Because you need to start on a negative, and you can say no, but it's a positive no. Would it be a terrible idea to grab coffee? Would it be a crazy idea to suggest this? Yeah, I think you're on the same playing field there, Tristan. I like it.
So I like it. This is a great one for if you're negotiating. On property specifically, like an offer doesn't exist unless it's on a contract. And so I always, if I'm starting low, I will always say, am I wasting your time if we put this on a contract? And then they want to say no to take it to the vendor. Like, no, like you're not wasting our time. Like, am I being rude and disrespectful if I give you this offer? So I always open.
I love that.
I love. Am I wasting your time? Like, is it even worth putting this on a contract? And then just see what they say. That they might be like, oh, look, you need to come up at least this, or if we can negotiate, if there's some room in the tank, whatever else it is. But I just I love that as a way to open negotiations.
Never split the difference, and use your late night FM DJ voice.
Oh, that's good.
Any passion projects you're working on outside of buyer's agency and Tommy?
Oh God, not at the moment. I'm you've caught me at a really funny time actually. I'm actually heading overseas tomorrow, so I've just been preparing, trying to get all of the deals done and everything locked away, and start packing and buying clothes, and doing all of that. Flight leaves tomorrow morning, so that's the only thing that I've got going on right now, other than buying properties and getting deals closed.
Now, I'm not a psychic. Are you going to Japan?
Close. I'm going to Sri Lanka, and then I'm going to China.
Okay, so, I just got back from China. You're gonna love it.
Oh, I'm so excited, mate. I'm so excited.
Very, very good. And I've never been to Sri Lanka, but how long is your trip? It sounds like it's going to be amazing.
I'm going for 3 weeks. Yeah, I've got a friend's wedding over there in Sri Lanka. So we're doing, 14 days there and then 15 or so days in China, maybe a little bit less. It's 3.5 weeks in total.
3.5 weeks.
Which will, yeah, I'm extremely excited. I've never been to either of those countries, so I cannot wait. Cannot wait.
It sounds like you're going to have a great time, my friend. Enjoy. Well deserved. Well deserved. And, look, getting to the end of it, lessons for young professionals who want to build their wealth through property but don't know where to start. What's the parting gift you're going to leave them with, my friend?
I've got a feeling that a lot of people actually can purchase properties and they feel like they cannot. And I think that honestly, and I'm not just doing this to plug you, I think that you should speak to a mortgage broker way, way sooner than what a lot of people do. And,
Good point.
have a chat because I think property in Australia is one of the best ways to build wealth. And we help a lot of first home buyers that, get into the market and then they might do some renovations. They might pour some sweat equity in. And then all of a sudden we're chatting with clients that are 3 or 4 years later and we're buying them their second property and they're selling and they've got hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity. They never would have been able to save that without the help of the market or the help of them doing some renovations. And I've got a feeling that a lot of young professionals actually can buy and they think that they cannot and they just put it all off and then they go and spend all their money on a giant Europe holiday or they buy the new car or they spend all the money on something else. And they could have bought 2 years ago. And if they did, they'd be in such a better position. But they didn't have the conversation and they didn't create like a bit of a plan just from like a financing perspective. Like if you've got the luxury of having a parent that could go guarantor, for example, or maybe you're eligible for some government schemes. There's so many other ways you can go about getting into the property market. So if people are listening, it's not a pipe dream, and I think that you absolutely can probably move a lot quicker than what you might have expected.
I'm hearing you on FM there, Tristan. Wise words, and I think that harkens back to the psychological principle of the reticular activating system. This is Science 101. Before you have the inkling of buying a red car, you don't see them. But as soon as I say you want a red car, you start to see them everywhere. Now, I see this phenomenon all the time with broking. Someone comes in and I go, what do you want to buy for? Well, I don't know. I don't know how much I can borrow. As soon as you say you can now borrow $500,000 as a loan with your deposit to $700,000 property, guess what happens that night when they're on realestate.com or talking to a fabulous buyer's agent like yourself? Things become real because you know what you're looking for. So, yeah, to your point, get your pre-approval, know what you can borrow because it costs nothing, lasts for 3 months, and you can always roll it over. And we've got clients that have a pre-approval like a gym membership. They've had it and they never used it. Yeah. I think the record is like 4 years, but eventually we want people to use it. So the questions I ask clients if they don't find a property within their first 1 or 2 rollovers of their pre-approval is, how's the property search going? Okay. What was the last property you looked at? Why didn't you buy it? And if, after all these 3 questions, it's like, do you need professional help? Not psychological help, but help like yourself going to a buyer's agent because I think it's important. It's important. And especially niche buyer's agents like yourself for my clients in Melbourne, you want boots on the ground talking to the Melbourne agents that have your connections that are showing up to open homes like you do and harassing the agents in a good way.
That's what we do. That's what we do.
That's what you do, mate.
I think that's incredible advice. And from your own, mate, like I think people do need to just get in and like when you do have those conversations with people as well, like I've found that once people start going to opens, that's when it really becomes like, oh my God, I could actually make an offer on this. And then all of a sudden it's like whatever they needed to do, whether it be pay off a credit card or something else in order for their finances to get like formally approved or whatever else it is, it all happens very, very quickly once you've got like the North Star of what could actually become reality.
Absolutely. So the main lessons here is get in touch with Tristan. Where can people find you? Where are you hanging out the most, my friend?
Yeah, well, I mean, so the website is just www.tommy.com.au, Tommy with 2 I's. And then also, I mean, follow us on Instagram. That's where we do a lot of our content. So Tommy Buyers Agents is the handle on Instagram. And then you'll see, updates from us and the team and everyone in the market and see the properties that we're purchasing for clients and hopefully learn something and have a bit of a laugh too.
Absolutely. And the meaning of Tommy, before we part, what does it mean, my friend?
Means wealth in Japanese, funnily enough. So, James Rankin and myself were thinking of a name, and we didn't want it to be someone's last name. And we've got the vision of like, we're growing the team rapidly. There's 4 buyers agents and we've got 3 offshore at the moment. We're looking actually to hire another onshore in Melbourne at the moment. And we just thought we wanted it to be something that represents what property means to us and everyone that we work with. And I think wealth is such an important thing, even for the family home. That's where the majority of Australians have got the majority of their wealth. And, if you've got a family home that's paid off, it makes retirement a lot easier. So, that's something that we're all really passionate about. And that's the backbone of what Tommy means.
I love that, Tommy. Wealth in Japanese. And thank you for being a great tomodachi, which is a friend in Japanese as well, mon ami. Sugoi desu ne, so desu ne. Thank you so much. Enjoy your trip, mon ami. Make it count. And thank you for being part of the Live with Cullen Haynes show today, my friend.
Cullen, it's an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you so much. Let's stay in touch.
Let's do it, mon ami. And if you're a legend of law, a legend, or want to be on the Live with Cullen Haynes show, we come out every Wednesday, speaking to legends like Tristan. Hope you enjoy your drive home, commute home, whatever you're doing. Give us a cheeky like and 5-star wherever you are, and subscribe to the podcast and re-listen to us wherever you get them. Bye for now, everyone. Have a happy Wednesday and take care. All the best.
Hey there, Cullen Haynes here, Australia's leading broker for lawyers on LinkedIn, and here's why I want to talk to you today about my new book, The Laws of LinkedIn, 23 ways to find your tribe, build your following, and make 7 figures on LinkedIn. When I started this journey 7 years ago, when we built, myself and Andrew, my business partner, we built legal home loans from the ground up, the pain point for us was we were at a standing start. No one knew who we were. We had no money, we had no contacts, and basically we had to find a way to make our voice heard, talk to our tribe, the legal community, and build trust. And the only thing we had at our disposal was LinkedIn, which was and still is free. There's over 1 billion people on LinkedIn, and I wish when I started, I had this book with me to guide me, because I basically distilled my 23 top leading hacks that we use to build our business to a 7+ figure, and I really want to get it out there and share it with you. So if you're